Thank you, Ambassador. We're now going to go through a 5-minute question round, 5 minutes each, to each of the senators who wish to participate. And I'm going to start. And I have to tell you that the watching President Ruhudo with the Chinese holding hands and talking about a new world order is just stunning. After all the work and effort we've put in there, and to see him talking about a new world order, you know, the new world order was constructed by the United States and democracies, capitalist countries that are human rights loving countries, and the new world order that these countries are talking about is being constructed by the autocracies, the outright communists, socialists, people have no respect for human rights. It's stunning to hear countries talk about wanting to join or promote that world order when the world order that was constructed after World War II has served us so really well. Certainly not perfectly, but then again, the world isn't a perfect place, but so much better than what you'd see if the autocrats took over. It's discouraging to hear that, and part of it, I think, is tied to the fact that when we do things in Africa, they seem to be individual-centric instead of a country-centric. We don't focus on institution, we focus on individuals. And I don't know why it seems to be more prevalent in this part of the world than others. So if each you could take a quick run at a very complex question. So why don't you start?
Thank you, Chairman. I agree. President Ruto's comments were discouraging. They're not also out of the ordinary for the types of comments that African leaders make, especially when they travel to Beijing, unfortunately. This is a challenge for the United States. I would suggest that African leaders haven't always thoroughly thought through the consequences of this different type of world order, especially smaller countries that are smaller military or economic powers. The type of world order that China, Russia, Iran are advocating for would mean that they would be victimized probably in many ways. The grievances that African leaders often express are focused on a few key issues, and then I think these larger powers like China, like Russia, like Iran, have co-opted those issues into their broader agenda to confront the United States. I think the U.S. Should make it clear to African leaders that while, of course, they're welcome to have normal relations with these countries, especially if you're a major non-NATO ally, there are certain responsibilities associated with that. And I think the U.S. needs to be much more aggressive in its messaging, frankly, to African publics and to African leadership about the benefits that you laid out of the world order that the United States has underpinned for decades now.
I appreciate that. And I think you hit on something that probably deserves more thought and more attention, and that is the fact that this is the kind of thing that they're used to. And the reason they're used to it is they see it all over the continent, and they don't have the cadre of people that study in the United States like most other continents do, really. I mean, China, for example, has got hundreds of thousands of students studying here, and Europeans are notorious for having lots of people here. So they're exposed to a different type of government, I think. Ambassador, your thoughts?
Thank you. That's such an interesting last point. I couldn't agree more that bringing more African students to the U.S. Would absolutely be in U.S. interest. We've seen time and again how it can pay dividends down the line, although it's very difficult, actually, for a lot of Africans to come do university and graduate studies here right now.
And the thing that strikes me, too, is when we deal with leaders, as all of us do, from all over the planet, it always amazes me how how good their English is, most of them. And you ask them why, and they studied here in the United States. People who are coming up through those other countries are sent by their parents or their government or something to study here. And the result is they take home the view of how important human rights are and how important democracy is. I'm sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
No, I agree with you completely. I do think there's kind of an inflection point in many parts of the continent right now. because you have these very young populations that are now urbanizing, digitally connected, there's a lot more political volatility. And so part of what I think is happening is a demand-driven desire for an international order that takes African equities into account, this sort of awareness that the Bretton Woods institutions were created right before most African countries were independent. And then that is capitalized on by U.S. adversaries, right, to distort the message to the U.S. wishes to keep African populations in poverty, or that's more or less the thrust of it. There's also the fact that, money talks. And for a lot of these African leaders, they're dealing with tremendously constrained fiscal space. They have big debt burdens. And the way the U.S. Provides assistance in ways that we can be accountable to the American taxpayers, it's a little bit different dealing with the Chinese or with some of these Gulf actors who've been gaining influence. And so the last thing I would say is that I couldn't agree more that it's really important to keep an eye on the internal dynamics in these countries for the U.S. to understand and have strong contacts and relationships with actors outside of government, because leadership changes are going to happen, and these investments in these one-to-one personal elite relationships will not serve our interests. They'll have a sell-by date, and we'll be left in the cold.
Well, appreciate that, and appreciate the remark you made about the fact that money talks, and we wind up with that all over. It's hard to explain to people that there's a real difference between capitalism and socialism. Where the government owns the capital and owns all the money, it's easy for them to spread it out in other countries as they deem appropriate, whereas in capitalism, you need the profit motive and the free market system to back you up. With that, Senator Shaheen.